Welcome back to the Deep Dive. So if you've been following the news over, I don't know, the last decade, you've definitely seen the name Musk. It's everywhere.
Oh, absolutely. It's plastered across headlines.
Usually involving reusable rockets, the future of electric cars, or, more recently, just a truly astounding level of political and digital chaos.
Right. But what if the story we all think we know, the one about this single controversial visionary, is actually just the latest chapter?
The most amplified chapter of something much bigger.
Exactly, a vast multi-generational dynasty. That's precisely what we found today. We were handed this huge stack of sources that, well, they don't just focus on Elon Musk's career.
No, they go way back.
They trace his origins back 3 generations and across 3 different continents. We're talking Europe, Africa, and North America.
So our mission today is really to move beyond that surface level stuff, the current businesses, the latest tweets, to get at the deep cultural, financial, and frankly, highly tumultuous context that shaped him.
And not just him, but his siblings too, Kimbal and Tosca.
Right. Our goal here is to give you the essential knowledge, kind of a shortcut to understanding the depth of this family's drive and also the persistent controversy that just seems to follow them around.
Yeah, because if you think the story just begins and ends with Elon's big successes, you're really missing the bigger picture.
Which is that this relentless ambition, this business acumen, it's a trait that's baked really deeply into this family tree.
And to illustrate just how wide this whole success story is, let's start with a crucial but often overlooked fact.
Okay.
While Elon totally dominates the headlines, his younger brother, Kimbal, is a massively successful multimillionaire in his own right.
In his own right, completely separate.
Completely. The sources frequently refer to him as the wealthiest chef in America. His net worth is estimated somewhere between $600 and $900 million.
That is just astonishing. Independent wealth built primarily on the culinary world and sustainable food movements.
Yep. Nothing to do with the space race or electric cars.
It tells you right away that we're dealing with a dynamic that's much bigger than just one personality. Okay, let's start unpacking this history. I mean, with these truly global roots, where does a dynasty like this actually begin?
Well, we really have to start with just the sheer diversity of their origins. The Musk story is, at its core, a study in migration.
Driven by what? Opportunity.
Opportunity, and sometimes by some very specific political or religious ideology. It's a classic melting pot, but, on a continental scale.
So let's break that down. On the paternal side, the Musk lineage is what, primarily English?
Primarily English, yeah, but they had been settled in South Africa for a long time, so they contributed to the older European roots in the country, which also did Boer ancestry.
And the Boers, of course, were the descendants of Dutch, German, and French Protestant settlers.
The original European colonists, yeah, dating all the way back to the 17th century.
Okay, so that's the paternal side. What about the maternal side? The Halderman.
That introduces a completely different element. Their origins are Swiss. Specifically, they stem from an Anabaptist group known as the Mennonites.
A radical Protestant group.
Very. And like many groups at the time, they were seeking religious freedom, which is what led them to settle in North America back in the 18th century. They migrated across the Great Lakes region before, eventually settling in Canada.
So you have this incredible confluence. English, older Boer roots, and Swiss Mennonite ancestry.
All converging in South Africa at different points in time. The sources note that some of these family strands were very early settled. Others arrived during the World Wars, and the Halderman, well, they arrived much, much later, specifically from Canada.
Okay, so let's focus on the generation that actually brought these two families together, the grandfathers.
Right, so Elon's paternal grandfather was Walter Henry James Musk. He was born in South Africa in the early 20th century, became an engineer, and served in the North African campaign during World War II.
And he married Cora Robbins.
That's right, a woman with English and South African Boer heritage. The sources describe him coming back from the war as a changed man, which we'll see had a profound effect on his son Errol's upbringing.
And on the maternal side, the other
That would be Joshua Norman Halderman. He was born in Minnesota in 1902, but his family moved across the border to Saskatchewan, Canada.
And he ended up becoming a chiropractor.
He did. He went to university in Chicago in the 1920s and established his career as a chiropractor.
And it's with Joshua Halderman's history that we see the first major instance of political controversy and this theme of intentional migration.
Yes. Our sources detail his deep political involvement in Canada, especially in the post-war year, and specifically his association with some extremely fringe and frankly worrying political movements.
What are we talking about specifically here?
He was connected to a group called Democracy Incorporated. This was an anti-democratic party so extreme it had actually been banned during. He also became a senior figure in the Social Credit Party Canada, which, despite despite its name suggesting financial reform, held these deeply nationalistic and isolated.
And crucially, the sources also note that historical analyses of his political writings suggest a very strong strain of anti-Semitism in his,
which is absolutely vital context for understanding his next major life decision.
It connects directly to the family's pivot to South Africa.
It does. After failing to get any political traction in Canada, Helderman made a conscious, intentional decision in 1950. He moved his entire family, including his young daughter, Maya, to South Africa.
And the timing here is so important. This move happened just 2 years after the formal establishment of the apartheid system of white minority rule in 1948.
So this wasn't just, economic migration. This wasn't just looking for a better job.
No, this was an ideological move.
The sources stated explicitly, Helderman viewed the newly introduced apartheid system favorably. He was actively looking for a society that aligned with his specific, controversial political...
And he found it.
He settled in the Pretoria-Johannesburg area and became a vocal supporter of the regime, all while practicing his trade as a chiropractor.
So you have this lineage that starts with Anabaptists seeking religious freedom in North America, but that same line then culminates with a grandparent who willingly uproots his entire family to go support a white minority, racially segregating government in Africa.
It's a stunning contrast.
That high contrast choice really sets the stage for the tumultuous generation that came next.
And that next chapter is, of course, the confluence of Errol Musk and Maya Helderman. Errol was born in Pretoria in 1946, but his early life was immediately marked by...
Because of his father, Walter.
Right. Walter returned from WWII deeply affected with a severe drinking problem. The sources paint this picture of detachment.
He gets checked out.
Pretty much. Spent most of his time doing crossword puzzles, basically ignoring the family. This led Errol's mother, Cora, to actually take the children and move back to England temporarily for some stability.
But they did eventually return.
They did. They went back to Pretoria, where Errol attended Clapham High School and then got a degree in electromagnetics from the University of Pretoria.
And then he launched himself into the construction sector.
Right. In the 1960s and 70s, which was a period of intense, rapid economic development in South Africa, especially for the white sector of society. And he demonstrated this just remarkable ability to spot opportunities and capitalize on them.
He became extremely wealthy.
Extremely. By reinvesting his substantial profits very aggressively into real estate.
And he became known for instantly translating that wealth into, let's say, conspicuous consumption.
That's a good way to put it. We're talking about a man who didn't just buy a Rolls Royce. At one point, he allegedly had one gold-plated.
A gold-plated Rolls Royce.
It's a statement of extreme status and ostentation, especially in a country with so much crime and inequality.
He even dabbled in politics, right?
A brief foray, yeah. He won an election in 1972 as an independent candidate to the local council of Sunnyside, Pretoria. So this early persona of Errol is really crucial. You have this combination of high entrepreneurial skill, a taste for local influence, and this over-the-top, boundary-pushing flashiness.
Now, let's connect back to Maya. She'd already started a pretty successful modeling career when she met Errol.
She had, and the sources indicate there was significant hesitation on her part. She actually turned down multiple proposals before finally agreeing to marry him in 1970.
And that hesitation seems to have been validated almost immediately.
Right away. The sources detail this disastrous honeymoon on the French Riviera. Errol made a point of flaunting the fact that he could legally buy pornography in France.
Which was illegal back home in South Africa.
Exactly. It was this public confrontational act, a clear signal of his need to push boundaries and, exhibit a certain degree of moral disregard.
They then had 3 children very quickly, Elon in 71, Kimbal in 72, and Tosca in 1974.
And Maya was directly involved in it. She ran the office side of his construction account. But their home life, according to her accounts, was deeply troubled.
What does she claim?
Her memoir details claims of both physical and emotional. She describes Errol as highly jealous, controlling, and just borderline paranoid about where she was, who she was talking.
She said he tried to isolate her.
Actively tried to isolate her from her family, yes. Now, Errol has admitted to infidelity, but he's always fiercely denied any of the abuse allegations. This constant, chaotic turmoil led to their divorce in 1979.
So Maya initially took primary custody and moved the children to Durban. But then comes this really strange turning point that, it really shaped the son's entire trajectories.
It's a pivotal moment. In 1981, Elon, feeling sympathy for his father, who he perceived as being lonely, chose to move back in with Errol in Johannesburg.
And Kimbal followed him?
Kimbal soon followed. And it was a decision that both of them would later express profound regret over.
Life with Errol was just volatile.
Volatile and psychologically jarring. The sources describe him as a difficult father who had this severe Jekyll and Hyde quality. One moment, it's extreme generosity. The next, it's terrifying bouts of anger, violent outbursts, and just completely unpredictable behavior.
And it wasn't just emotional damage. He actively brought his young sons into his, let's call them schemes.
Illicit schemes is probably more accurate. The sources note that he involved them in various shady business dealings and capers.
Like the casino story.
The anecdote about the casino is so telling. Errol would dress them up to look 16 years old, even though they were younger, and take them to casinos in the mid-'80s so they could help heat the house.
So he's not just gambling. He's teaching his young sons that rules are made to be bent or broken entirely for financial gain.
All within this environment of immense privilege, total emotional chaos.
This high-stakes, high-risk upbringing brings us directly to that famous story that became the foundational myth of the Musk family fortune, the Zambian emerald.
Yes, the emerald mine. This myth, which circulated for years, claims the Musk wealth all started with Errol owning this massive emerald mine, which then funded all of Elon's ventures.
But based on our source material, the reality is, a lot messier.
Much messier and way more indicative of Errol's wheeler-dealer character.
So let's break down the actual sequence of events that the sources confirm.
Okay. In 1986, Errol, who was an amateur pilot, landed at an airstrip in Zambia. He runs into this Italian-Panamanian smuggler who is desperate to get his hands on Errol.
So they make a deal.
They do. In exchange for the plane, Errol agrees to take a cut of the emeralds the smuggler had acquired from 3 local mines.
So he never owned the mine. He just traded his plane for some raw stone.
He never owned a mine. But he didn't stop there. For the next year or two, he really capitalized on his geographical advantage. He essentially became a temporary, high-level middleman for these smugglers.
How did that work?
They'd bring the uncut stones from Zambia to him in Johannesburg. He would then arrange for the stones to be cut locally in South Africa, which adds significant value, and then move the finished gems out of the country through illicit channels.
And the big question, how much money did this actually generate versus the myth of this huge dynastic fortune?
Well, it was substantial for sure, but it wasn't the multi-millions that the myth implied. The sources estimate Errol made over $200,000 from this smuggling activity,
Which, adjusted for inflation today, is roughly
about $550,000. So it was a massive influx of cash that definitely solidified his financial position in the 1980s.
But the idea that it founded a billion-dollar empire is a total exaggeration.
It is. What it did provide, though, was this mentality, a lesson, that high-risk, quick cash schemes were a viable and maybe even exciting route to wealth.
And that volatile environment, marked by this illicit wealth and extreme psychological pressure, it led Elon to flee as soon as he possibly could.
Yeah. The late 1980s marked the mass departure of the family from South Africa.
Elon was anxious to leave.
Desperate. Especially as he was finishing secondary education. He left for Canada in June of 1989, settled with some cousins in Ontario, and enrolled at Queen's University. Sources say he never looked back.
And the rest of the family followed.
Kimbal joined him a year later. Then Maya and Tosca soon completed the migration, also settling it up.
And beyond just escaping Errol, the source material indicates this move was also deeply rooted in the political pressures of the time, especially for young white men.
Absolutely. There was the mandatory military conscription for young white South Africans, which was a huge push factor for Elon and Kimbal. And on top of that, the broader political climate was just collapsing.
Right.
International boycotts were escalating, domestic tensions were rising. It all signaled that the apartheid system was nearing it. That led hundreds of thousands of white South Africans to seek stability somewhere else.
And Errol, in contrast, chose to stay behind in that crump.
Did. And his life just continued on its turbulent trajectory. His post-departure life was marked by both legal and financial.
He remarried, didn't he?
In 1994, he married Haida Bizidenhout, a widow with several young children. The sources suggest she'd had a very unstable life, periods in foster care. Errol and Haida had 2 daughters together, Alexandra and Asher Rose, before that marriage ended in 2000.
And the violence that seemed to follow him everywhere culminated in that bizarre 1998 incident. It reads like something out of a pulp novel.
It really does. Errol claimed his property in Johannesburg was burgled. He alleged that he shot and killed 3 of the intruders.
And he later claimed he was dodging bullets using karate moves.
Yeah. Whether that description is, factual or embellished, the incident just underscores the violent, unstable world he inhabited. At the same time, his wheeler-dealer ways, the smuggling and so on, which relied on the structures of the pre-1994 economy, became less profitable.
He ran into money trouble.
The sources indicate he faced significant financial difficulties by the 2000s.
So while the patriarch is struggling and generating chaos back home, Elon and Kimbal are beginning this astonishing ascent in North America.
A completely different world. Elon transferred from Queens to the University of Pennsylvania, then headed to California. But instead of going for a graduate degree, He launched straight into entrepreneurship right at the start of the dot-com.
And in 1995, the brothers founded Zip2.
Their vision was so simple but transformative at the time.
Yeah.
They took the function of those massive printed yellow paper business direct and just moved them online.
Geotagging them for major American cities. It was an essential service for the early internet.
It was. And this is the moment where Errol's ill-gotten cash flow proved absolutely critical. The sources make a really strong case that Errol provided the pivotal financial
$28,000.
$28,000. And the sources are unequivocal about this. That relatively small sum was the launch pad that allowed them to quit academia and focus full-time on.
One of the sources says something pretty direct about it.
It explicitly notes that, quote, without this financing, the world might never have heard of Elon.
And Zip2 was a spectacular success. Sold in 1999 to Compaq for $300 million, right at the height of the market bubble.
Elon walked away with $22 million and Kimbal with $15 million. It was enough to retire comfortably forever.
But they immediately plunged into the next, much more complex venture, X-Stock.
Right. X.com, founded in '99, saw Elon invest half of his Zip2 money. It was meant to be this comprehensive online financial services company, basically an early digital bank, with a huge focus on security, which was a major impact.
But this is where that dynamic of internal conflict really starts to define his career path.
Precise. X.com was technically ambitious, but it was plagued by internal strife. Musk's co-founders, people like Harris Fricker and Christopher Payne, they fell out with him almost.
They had different visions for the company.
Fundamentally different visions. Musk wanted this huge, all-encompassing digital bank. The others favored a much more niche product, focusing on person-to-person money transfer.
The infighting was so severe that key people left.
They did. But the company was successful enough to merge with Confinity in 2000, creating what we now know as PayPal.
And even after the merger, the conflict just continued.
Nonstop. While Musk was technically the CEO, the board eventually removed him, favoring Peter Thiel instead. It was a brutal political and business.
And yet, paradoxically, he still held the largest single shareholding when eBay acquired PayPal in 2002.
Which is the incredible twist. So despite being forced out of management, his initial investment and just the sheer volume of his shares resulted in a massive.
A truly staggering one.
He netted around $175 million from that sale. So in less than 7 years, the Musk brothers had transformed $28,000 into nearly $200 million.
And established a pattern.
A clear pattern. Rapid entrepreneurial vision, aggressive execution, a lot of internal political turmoil, and, in the end, a massive financial.
So with that PayPal windfall, Musk pivot. He moves away from software and finance and into these realms that demand way more capital and a much longer-term vision.
Yeah, we're talking about space and automotive engineering. This is where he transitions from a Silicon Valley success story into really a global.
The decision to found SpaceX in 2002 was pretty counterintuitive given the historical context. Space exploration was in a dramatic lull at that point.
It was a monumental undertaking. The U.S.-Soviet space race was long over, NASA funding had dried up after the 70s, and space activity had just slowed to a crawl. And here comes Musk, founding SpaceX with this explicit goal of reviving.
And not just reviving it, he was immediately focusing on the seemingly impossible target of making human travel to Mars a reality.
Right. And while his Mars timelines have been consistently pushed back, the latest projection is now 2027, the company's early years were just marked by these near-death experiences.
This is a critical detail the sources highlight.
Oh, it's a story of sheer persistence. SpaceX launched its first Falcon 1 rocket in 2006. It failed. They launched a second in 2007, third in 2008 also.
So after 3 failures,
he was facing bankruptcy. The sources confirm he had put basically his entire PayPal fortune on the line. Had that 4th launch failed in late 2008, SpaceX would have collapsed. End of story.
But that 4th launch succeeded.
It did. And that success secured a massive life-saving contract from NASA, which changed everything.
And from there, SpaceX developed the Falcon series of rockets, and the fundamental innovation was reusable technology.
Exactly. Instead of just discarding the booster stages, the Falcon 9 was engineered to land vertically. And the sources detailed these specific radical innovation, complex thrust vectoring, and deployable grid fins.
And the successful landing of a reusable rocket in 2015 was the pivotal moment.
It was a game changer. It drastically reduced the cost of sending payloads into.
This success has essentially transformed SpaceX into the de facto outsourced arm of NASA.
It has. They hold billions of dollars in crucial contracts, and they're currently driving the Artemis program to return humans to the moon by 2027.
And the valuation reflects.
Absolutely. If SpaceX were a public company, estimates place its worth somewhere between 300 and 400 billion. And Musk owns an estimated 40. It has permanently changed the economics and the perceived limit.
Okay, let's move to his other giant venture, Tesla Motors. And we really need to underscore the source's clarification on Musk did not found.
That is a really important distinction the sources make very clear. Tesla was founded by Mark Tarpenning and Martin Eberhard in 2003.
Musk's genius wasn't in the initial concept then.
No, functional electric cars have existed since the 1880s. His genius was in aggressively leveraging his PayPal wealth to acquire control during a moment of crisis for the company.
He led a crucial funding round in 2004, joined the board, and just kept expanding his shareholding through subsequent funding.
And he took over as CEO in 2008, succeeding Evdroy, at a point when the company was in serious commercial danger, which was compounded by the global financial crisis.
He basically willed the company through this near-failure period.
He did. Sales were extremely slow in the 2000s. The cars were expensive. There was limited infrastructure.
But the sources stress that the huge acceleration in sales from 2012 onwards was significantly aided by targeted government intervention and incentives.
Oh, huge. U.S. federal and state laws, especially in California, provided large federal subsidies for production and these critical consumer tax incentives, sometimes offering thousands of dollars off the purchase price for buying.
And those policies, coupled with his relentless marketing, propelled Tesla's growth.
To the point where sales topped 1 million units for the first time in 2020.
And the financial returns for him personally were just staggering. The stock price was, around $2 a share in 2011?
Something like that. By late 2020, it had ballooned to approximately $250 a share. And it's that massive valuation tied to his enormous shareholding that officially made him the world's richest person on and off.
Beyond these two giants, he's also invested in or founded a number of other ventures with, let's say, mixed results.
That's fair.
Starting with Solar City, which the sources note was actually founded by his cousin.
Peter and Lyndon Rye in 2006. Musk invested heavily, and then Tesla acquired it in 2016 for $2.6 billion, integrating it into Tesla's energy.
But the sources note that Solar City was carrying a lot of debt.
A substantial amount, yeah. It raised a lot of questions about whether the move was to benefit family members or if it was a purely...
Then there's Neuralink, which is arguably one of the most exciting long-term projects.
Yeah, Neuralink aims to develop these implantable brain-computer interface, or BCI. The potential applications are just revolutionary. Restoring sight, treating neurological conditions, allowing severely disabled people to control complex computers.
And the sources say this is a viable entity.
They confirm it remains viable, making slow, scientifically grounded breakthroughs. It suggests it could eventually have a tremendous impact on it.
And finally, we have the concepts that remain largely theoretical. The pipe dream, the Boring Company, and Hyperloop.
Right. The Boring Company, established in 2017, aimed to revolutionize urban infrastructure with cheaper, faster tunneling methods. But, while they've completed some short test tunnels, the company has made very little tangible progress toward its massive infrastructure.
And Hyperloop, the concept for high-speed travel through low-pressure tubes.
That remains pretty much a paper concept since 2020. Transport engineers continue to raise profound questions about its practical feasibility, the cost, the safety concerns. It's seen virtually zero real-world progress.
So it seems to be the hallmark of the Musk empire.
How so?
You balance one or two truly world-changing, often government-contracted successes with a handful of ambitious and sometimes financially dubious pipe dreams.
Yeah, and the last few years of Musk's career have been really dominated by his increasing political outspokenness, and that shift dramatically exposes the inherent contradictions within his own technological empire.
Let's start with the environmental paradox.
Mm-hmm.
The sources highlight this as being profoundly inconsistent. He built the leading EV company and developed reusable rockets.
And yet his environmental record is anything but pure. The contradiction is stark. He's openly dismissed public transport, especially buses, which are, essential for scaling back fossil fuel dependency globally.
But the most alarming detail concerns his new AI venture, xAI.
Right. xAI requires just a staggering amount of computational power to run its Grok AI platform.
And where's that power coming from?
The sources confirm that the supercomputer site powering xAI, which is located in Memphis, Tennessee, relies on 30 methane gas turbines. Methane, which chemically is one of the most potent greenhouse gas there. It has a global warming potential far higher than CO2 short term. For the leader of the world's foremost electric vehicle company to power his flagship AI endeavor with 30 methane turbines is...
Well, it's an environmental decision that defies logic.
It prioritizes speed over the green mission.
Completely. It's a technological technological expediency that seems to override the entire environmental mission of Tesla. And this connects directly to his dramatic political shift.
His trajectory has been erratic, but always focused on security.
Yeah, in the 2000s and 2010s, he maintained relationships with Democrats. He met President Obama. He voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016.
Which was a necessary alignment given SpaceX's massive NASA contracts.
Of course. But after the COVID-19 pandemic, the shift became aggressive. The sources indicate this deep frustration with what he termed woke culture and the woke mind virus.
He moved heavily toward financing Republican candidates,
positioning himself as this champion of absolute free speech and deregulation, which led directly to his intense focus on Twitter. This preoccupation with social media and its perceived lack of free speech led to the X acquisition, a takeover that basically defined his 2022.
He started buying shares in January 2022, which culminated in the $44 billion buyout offer in April.
Yeah, analysts immediately said the price was far too
much for a platform facing major structural challenges. He tried to pull out of the deal, citing issues with bot counts, but he was legally forced to complete the binding deal in October 2020.
And the chaos was immediate.
Instantaneous, massive sudden staff layoffs, and the rebranding of Twitter to X in a nod to his old X.com venture.
And that acquisition set the stage for his deep immersion into the political scene of 2024 and 2020.
He threw his considerable financial weight, we're talking hundreds, and his visible campaigning behind Donald Trump in the 2024 election.
Now, Trump's victory margin of 312 to 226 electoral votes meant Musk's support wasn't the sole determinant.
But it placed him in a unique position of influence after the election.
His reward was this strange, unprecedented management role.
So he was tasked with managing the newly created Department of Government.
A clear, playful reference to the cryptocurrency he frequently promotes.
Yep, and this position allowed him to act as a reformer both inside and outside the government.
So what were his immediate policy focuses in that role?
He was deeply concerned about the U.S. debt mountain, which is on track to hit $40 trillion by late 2026 or early 2027. He pushed aggressively for radical government cuts, elimination of programs, arguing for fiscal responsibility.
And this push reportedly caused a lot of friction.
A ton of friction. It even hit Tesla's sales figures among some consumers. But the alliance with Trump proved incredibly mirroring the volatility of his person.
The acrimonious split came in May of 2020.
And it centered on a massive budget bill that was supported by Musk publicly criticized the bill because it offered significant tax cuts to the richest Americans.
And his argument was?
His argument was that these cuts would dramatically lower tax revenue, which would thereby eradicate the debt reduction work he was trying to do within DOJ.
And this disagreement immediately descended into a very public war of words.
Oh, yeah, all over X and Truth Social, which fueled a ton of marketing. The conflict raised serious concerns over Tesla's share price and the security of SpaceX's billions in government contracts.
But the sources suggest NASA is now too dependent on SpaceX to just cut ties.
They're structurally dependent for propulsion, for ISS resupply. It's too late to just sever ties, but the uncertainty was palpable.
And the departure itself was marked by this bizarre, almost unbelievable physical detail.
Right. Musk showed up to an Oval Office meeting, the one marking his departure, with a black eye.
A black eye.
Which fueled immediate rumors across media and social platforms about potential physical altercations within the White House or speculation related to his alleged ketamine rumors. The sources note were already highly active at the time, although not fact.
Following this explosive departure, the Tesla board then acted to try and, rein in his focus.
Rein him in, yeah. They proposed this audacious compensation plan.
Audacious is the word. A $1 trillion payout if he can somehow grow Tesla to an $8 trillion market cap by the mid-2030s.
$1 trillion.
And analysts are reportedly calling that target completely unrealistic. Why?
Well, for an automaker, it is. The competition from established giants and rapidly emerging companies like China's BYD is just too intense. The market for EVs, while large, isn't limitless. An $8 trillion valuation would make Tesla several times larger than any company that currently...
So the only way that analysts see that target as being remotely feasible is if Tesla fundamentally changes its core identity.
Exactly. The sources suggest this target is only potentially achievable if Musk successfully transforms Tesla into a massive AI robotics company.
So wrapping in initiatives like XAI Grok.
And potentially linking it to the deep space communication infrastructure of SpaceX. This grand vision is sometimes referred to in the sources by the internal codename Stargate, a massive integrated future where all his companies connect via AI and physical.
So while Elon is generating all these political and corporate storms, the rest of the Musk family continues to build their own independent success story.
Maintaining that family trait of relentless ambition.
Right. Kimbal Musk, as we noted, is still extremely successful. He serves on the boards of Tesla and SpaceX, but his professional identity is really centered on the culinary
Restaurants and food production. And his focus is specifically on creating sustainable local.
He founded the kitchen community,
which evolved into Big Green, a nonprofit focused on feeding children and setting up learning gardens in hundreds across the U.S. He also recently invested in Nova Sky, a drone-based entertainment. Again, just showing these diverse.
And his life was nearly derailed.
Yeah, he suffered temporary paralysis after an inner tubing accident, which really underscores.
And their sister, Tosca, she forged a career entirely in the entertainment.
Right. She started her directorial work back in 2001. Tosca found her niche in the highly lucrative world of romance content. She's the co-founder of Passion Flick, a streaming service that adapts romance novels into film. And
she also pursued motherhood independently,
having twin children in 2013 via IVF and an anonymous donor.
And their mother, Maya, has maintained this remarkable career across multiple decades.
She continues to model globally, working with major brands like Revlon, appearing on the cover of Elle. She leveraged her background as a dietitian and nutritionist, publishing the successful memoir, A Woman Makes.
The entire family demonstrates that relentless drive.
They do, though Maya and the siblings generally maintain far less controversial public profile.
Well, speaking of controversy, Elon's personal life and his expensive paternity, it just continues that high drama, high contrast familial pattern that was established by his father, Errol.
Yeah, his paternity is both large and highly fractured. With his first wife, Justine Wilson, they tragically lost their first son in Nevada to SIDS in 2002. And they subsequently had 5 children via IVF twins in 2004 and triplets in 2006. Their 2008 divorce very complicated, compounded by Justine's struggles with depression and her accounts of Elon's emotional absence and all.
And the next major chapter involved his relationship with the musician Grimes, or Claire Bush,
resulting in 3 children with highly unusual, memorable names: X Ash A12, Ava Dark Sideral, and Technom Mechanic.
And the custody disputes there are ongoing and very public.
Exacerbated by Grimes criticizing Elon's use of their young son in press conferences as recently as 2025, claiming it put the child in the center of unnecessary.
But the sources reveal that during that relationship with Grimes, he was secretly expanding his paternity with a senior employee at 2 of his key companies.
Correct. Unbeknownst to Grimes, he had started a relationship with Siobhan Zillis, an employee at Tesla in Neuralink. They had twins together in 2021, and the sources confirm they have had 2 further children in 2024 and 5.
So this rapid expansion means he's fathered 14 children in total.
14, encompassing 2 sets of twins and 1 set of.
And the drama just compounded in 2025 with yet another public paternity scandal.
A conservative influencer, Ashley Sinclair, alleged that Elon was the father of her son Romulus, who was born in late 2024. Although Elon initially denied it, a subsequent paternity test confirmed his fatherhood, leading to mandated child support payments and yet another child in the public eye.
And the final painful element of his fractured family life is his estrangement from his eldest daughter.
Right. His daughter, Vivian, who is transgender, has publicly severed all ties, and analysts and commentators have argued that Musk's highly public and persistent attacks on woke culture may be interpreted as a psychological reaction to the complete estrangement of his own child,
turning private family pain into public political commentary.
That's the argument. And finally, we have to revisit the source of so much of this generational chaos, Errol Musk. The familial rupture with him seems complete and permanent.
The relationship was already fraught, even before the final breach.
It was. There was an acrimonious family reunion in Cape Town in 2016 that was cut short after just an hour because Errol was dominating the conversation with such belligerence.
But the final breach came in 2017.
with the revelation of Errol's relationship with his former stepdaughter, Jana.
And just to be clear, Jana was only 5 years old when Errol married her mother in 1994.
That's right. Errol went on to father a child and later a daughter with Jana. This news was the final straw. Elon publicly described his father as evil in a 2017 interview shortly after it broke, confirming the complete and irreversible emotional and moral break father.
And the controversy surrounding Errol only deepened recently.
In 2025, an in-depth New York Times article detailed accusations against Errol, specifically relating to his 2 daughters with Haida and his 3 stepchildren from them. These were extremely serious allegations that built on earlier speculation detailed by Haida.
And Errol's response.
He continues to deny all charges, but the history of volatility, violence, and now these abuse allegations, they really cement his role as the progenitor of profound, multi-generational familial trauma.
What stands out, looking across all this source material, is just the relentless, high-contrast theme of the Musk Dynasty. It's a story built on extreme risk-taking, global mobility, and an almost superhuman entrepreneurial drive demonstrated by Elon, Kimbal, and Maya.
But all of that world-changing success is set against permanent, often deeply troubling backdrop of political extreme, illicit scheme, tense conflict found.
A chaos that stretches from Joshua Helderman's political views to Errol scandals and right up to Elon's own complex, expansive personal.
And our sources reveal that the chaotic, high-contrast, high-risk lifestyle provided by Errol Musk, marked by that extreme anger, the immense wealth, the illicit schemes, that unpredictable Jekyll and Hyde quality, that was the core environmental influence on his formative years.
He may have successfully fled South Africa as soon as he could.
But he spent his most defining years completely immersed in that volatility and
So, here's the question that the weight of this history really forces us to confront. Given this uniquely difficult and intensely conflict-ridden upbringing, marked by a deeply unconventional father, generational political extremism, and immense personal drama, what lasting impact might such a chaotic background have had on the personality, political outlook, and the relentless high-risk drive of a global leader who now controls some of the world's most critical technological and political platforms?
That is the dynamic we leave for you to continue exploring. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
We'll see you next time.